Thank you, Mario. At this time, I would like to introduce our speaker. We have a wonderful, powerful, motivating speaker for you today. Amani Walker is the co-founder and executive director of the Rebecca Project for Human Rights, a legal and policy organization that advocates for justice, dignity, and policy reform for vulnerable women and girls in the United States and Africa. Soon after her 18 months of recovery, Ms. Walker founded Rebecca's Project Sacred Authority Leadership and Advocacy Program, a national leadership network of parent advocates in recovery and their allies, and in 2001 joined forces with Malika Sada Sar, founder of Crossing the River, a written and spoken word workshop to create the Rebecca Project for Human Rights. Ms. Walker enjoys 13 years of long-term recovery from substance abuse and uses her personal journey of suffering to healing to advocate for other mothers and children dealing with violence, trauma, and substance abuse issues. Ms. Walker has trained hundreds of mothers in recovery to become advocates and educators to policymakers. Since 2001, Sacred Authority has expanded to have chapters in 14 states and the District of Columbia, where the Sacred Authority advocates conduct weekly leadership workshops for women in the DC jail. In 2011, Ms. Walker was honored by Essence Magazine's 2011 Power List as one of the 28 most influential Black women, and who was also featured on BET's Black Girls Rock, where she received the 2011 Black Girls Rock Trailblazer Award. Ms. Walker is the 2009 Women's Addiction Services Leadership Institute Associate, received Red Book Magazine's Mothers and Shakers 2005 Award, and Ford Foundation's Leadership for Changing World Award in 2004. Ms. Walker and the Rebecca Project for Human Rights have been featured in Essence Magazine 2005 and 2011, Red Book Magazine 2005, and the O Oprah Magazine in 2011. Welcome, Ms. Amani Walker.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to be here today, and I'd like to thank Judge Weisberg and Deputy Director McGinnis for the invitation to come and speak before you all. I want to first acknowledge Mario and his courage, and I really love that letter and could identify with it, every word of it. So I just wanted to acknowledge him for that. As she was reading my bio, and I was thinking, okay, already, hurry up, speed it up, you know. I couldn't help but look at the beautiful women in the front row and see your lovely faces and encouragement. And it just reminded me of our connection. I'm a mother in recovery. I'm a Washingtonian. I'm a native of Washington, D.C., born and raised here, Coolidge alumni graduate. And I was a young mother who experienced domestic violence. Most mothers who are substance abusing have first experienced physical or sexual violence. Most folk, men and women who are substance abusing, have experienced some trauma in their life and are self-medicating to that trauma. And so for me, I was self-medicating to the issues of unaddressed physical violence. And I sought help here in Washington, D.C. And it was very hard for me to find appropriate help for a mother. But finally, I accessed a program that could help me. It was long-term in length of stay, and it was comprehensive. And I remember when I was in that program, it was in Anacostia, D.C., and I would sit and I would look across the Anacostia River, and I would think, this is a powerful place, and powerful things can happen here. And I wasn't, talking about the work that I would eventually do with the Rebecca Project. I had no clue that that was in my future. I was only talking about my personal transformation. At the time, the Washington Monument was being resurfaced. I don't know if any of you all remember that, but back in 1998, there was scaffolding going up around the Washington Monument. And I remember thinking, as I watched that go up over my 18 months of treatment, that scaffolding was mirroring what was happening in my personal life. Imani was being restored. And I would say this is a powerful place and powerful things can happen here. This morning, as I was getting prepared to come and speak before you all, I needed some inspiration, and I did what I do on most mornings. I opened my daily meditation book for my 12-step recovery, and the subject today was courage to change. And I thought, how appropriate. And it starts out with the serenity prayer, and if you all could say it with me, that would be great. God, grant me the serenity to change the things that I can. Am I saying it wrong? I'm saying it wrong. Okay. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. See, I was ready to change some stuff off the top. Y'all see that? I skipped the acceptance and the serenity part and went straight to let's change, right? Okay. And what it said was, recovery involves change. Change means doing things differently. The problems that many of us face, it's not the problems, but our resistance to the change. And it talked about fear of the unknown. And what that meant for me and my personal recovery was, I didn't know what was ahead of me, but I knew what was behind me. And I had gotten comfortable with those things in my life that I knew I needed to change. And what I want to talk about is embracing the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen for me in my life. I only knew what had happened, and I didn't want to go back there. My biggest hope was that I could become a responsible mother to my children, that I could become a loving and supportive daughter to my dad, who was 85 years old at the time. And if that was the best thing that had happened to me, I would have been satisfied right there. I wanted to be a productive member in the community. That's all I really wanted to do. And so that was what I was embracing. I was marching forward and facing my fears and facing the things that I needed to do. And what I know now is courage is not absence of fear, but courage is having fear and acting responsibly even in the face of that fear. And when I think about the unknown, I think about infinite possibilities. In recovery, we often talk about if I had made a list of all the things I wanted, I would have shortchanged myself. And that's exactly where I was at. I just wanted to be a responsible citizen. But I didn't know that God had a plan for my life. And the very things that I thought was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, and for me, that was being a mother and being a pregnant woman and not being able to stop using drugs. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to anyone. But that was the very thing that God used to make me uniquely qualified for the work that I do today. So whether you're a man or a woman, the thing that you think is the worst thing, the thing that you think causes you the most stigma, the thing that you think may have people to judge you the most, may be the very thing that God will turn around and make it so that you are uniquely qualified to provide service to your community. I started the Rebecca Project program of Sacred Authority in my transitional housing program. Okay, so it was not any fancy, glorious start. I was in transitional housing. I was certified homeless. And me and a group of moms got together in our living room, and we started talking about the things we wanted to change, the things that had happened to us. We talked about how we couldn't find appropriate treatment. It was from those conversations in our living room that we began to go and visit Congress right here in the backyard of Washington, D.C. So my mantra had begun to take shape and form. This is a powerful place, and powerful things can happen here. Just a few moms in my living room got together, and we went and we met with Congress, and we talked about the needs of mothers in Washington, D.C. And from that, the Rebecca Project was born. As my bio talked about, we went on to secure funding On the federal level for mothers in recovery, initially we were able to get what was $0 to $5 million for mothers across the country. Eventually that grew to what is now $16 million. But what we were able to do was make the case that it's easier for a mom to go to jail and for her children to land in child protective services than it is for her to get appropriate treatment. So from there, we were able for the first time ever to get child welfare dollars to go towards comprehensive family treatment. That's a place where a mom can take her children. Since that time, we've been able to get over $450 million federally for a mother to be able to stay with her child. I think it's really appropriate that I'm having this commencement presentation here in Washington, D.C., because even though we were able to make those accomplishments federally, here in this city, there still is not a comprehensive program where a mom can take her child. So things come full circle. I went from my living room to doing this work on the national level, and now we're bringing it back locally. So I'm ready to be here and to be of service right here in Washington, D.C. to make sure that family treatment is back in Washington, D.C. We've also been doing work with returning citizens. So I'm doing reentry work here with men and women in Washington, D.C. So the moral of that story is that you can come from very humble beginnings. Maybe the worst thing that you think could ever happen. It could be a situation of stigma. How am I ever going to talk to anybody about what I've done in my addiction? How am I ever going to talk about the fact that, whether I've had a case in court or have been incarcerated, or in my case, I was a mom who could not stop using and could not even stop when I was pregnant. That very thing that you think is the worst thing that could ever happen may be the thing that makes you the most important person in the room. The most important person in the room. I've gone on to be that responsible mom to my children. I'm now a loving grandmother, and I was able to take care of my father when I was in early recovery, and he lived for several more years, and he died right before his 94th birthday, and I was very proud that I was able to be there and help him through his transition. So I just want to encourage you all today. I'm going to stay for the rest of the ceremony. I hope to get to connect with you all personally, and know that you can look me up in any way that I can be of service. Please be in contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. And for our appreciation, I'd like to present her with a certificate of appreciation from the treatment team and the Director of Treatment, Terrence Wolf. At this time, we're going to start moving into the progressions and graduation ceremony. And to start us off, Judge Carey would like to come up and share a few words as we begin this process.
Thank you, and it's a joy to be here today. I preside over not the drug court that Judge Weisberg presides over, but the mental health community court. And I can only say to you that the joy that it gives a judge to be part of what the defendants in that calendar are accomplishing is immeasurable. And Ms. Walker's comments obviously are hard to follow, but it gives a very good example of one person's story and what they can accomplish. What you're doing, and I want to give a big shout out to the staff at PSA in the Specialized Supervision Unit who are working so tirelessly and so creatively to help our clients move forward in their recovery. They're doing a superb job dealing with persons who are suffering from mental health issues and substance abuse issues often, and it is a particularly challenging combination of services to try to deliver and problems to try to deal with. Those of you who are working so hard and are accomplishing so much, I can only congratulate you on what you're accomplishing. You're reclaiming your lives for yourselves, for your family, and for your community, which you can be a great contribution to, as Ms. Walker's case demonstrates. So I congratulate you all and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Now at this time, we'll do this slightly different due to the size of the ceremony and for time's sake as well. We are going to acknowledge by name all the individuals who progressed from phase 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. And then at that point, we will start handing out certificates to all the graduates here. Okay. So, as I say the names for everyone over the last month who progressed to phase 2, just feel free to stay where you're at and we'll give a round of applause at the end. Phase 2 progressions: James Herbert, Regina Robinson, Jelani Bates, Andrew Thompson, Kenneth Campbell, Rocky Sheffy, Katrina Valentine, Gary Cunningham, Troy Mercer, William Frost, Damian Carter, Robert Spears, Stephen Brown, Michael Jones, and Marshila Thompson. Round of applause for all those.